Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you all the birth story of my first child. So for this birth, my labor was about 45 hours long, of which 15 were relatively mild and the other 30 were pretty intense. So I woke up on Saturday at noon, which is a luxury I don't have now, but back then I had it, and so I woke up at noon and I had really mild cramping and I had a little bit of a bloody show. And I remember telling my partner that this could be something, the baby could be coming, but I didn't want to make something out of nothing because at this point I was only 39 weeks pregnant and I really expected to reach at least the 40-week pregnancy mark, if not 41 or even 42 weeks. So with this being said, we went on with our day as we normally would, and on this day it happened to be the birthday party of my little brother, and we hadn't gotten him anything for a gift, so we went to the shopping mall to find him something. We didn't know what we were gonna get him, so we did quite a bit of shopping and quite a bit of walking. And so during this time, I still felt the really mild cramping, but I felt that it was coming and it was going and it was coming and it was going. But since they were so mild, I was able to go about what I was doing without paying them any mind. And so we got my brother's gift and we went back to my grandma's house, which is where the party was being held. So during this party I was able to function normally without too much cringing or grimacing or moaning or groaning in pain. But by 6 o'clock p.m. these cramps had not gone away and I decided to start timing them. So when I started timing them, I noticed that they were anywhere from 2 minutes apart to 20 minutes apart, and the intensity was really varying. So I didn't tell anyone in my family what I was feeling because, like I said, I really did not want to make something out of nothing, and so we left the party without me having told anyone what might be going on. So I was able to do my normal nightly routine of, showering and getting ready for bed, and by the time that was over it was about 10 o'clock p.m. and to be honest, I really did not do too much sleeping. I just kept thinking about whether this was something was going wrong. I was also excited because this could be the labor, obviously leading to the birth of my child. And so at 6 a.m. I finally just got out of bed because, like I said, I wasn't doing very much sleeping, and by this time the cramping had gotten pretty intense to where they were all I could focus on. And so I started using my yoga ball, I started doing a little bit of a meditation, and I just started, laboring with my breathing and sort of just calming myself and centering myself. And so I did this from about 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. so noon on Sunday. We're now on Sunday. I contacted my midwife and I told her that something might be happening, and I've been feeling cramping since noon from the previous day. So we decided to go to the birthing center so I could get checked. So once we got to the birthing center, the midwife was able to check my cervix to see how far dilated I was, and I don't know what I was expecting, but being checked was nothing like what I was expecting. It was really uncomfortable for me, but the midwife was able to measure that I was about 2 centimeters dilated and almost completely effaced, and this was really disappointing to me. And this was the first time out of about 2 times that I cried during my labor because I just felt really frustrated. I've been laboring for so long that I must have been further along than I was, and I just, at this point, I was thinking, if labor had been this long and this bad at this point, I didn't know what to expect for the rest of my labor, and I was really sort of having doubts in myself and my ability to get through this. So we decided to go home and labor there, and so during this time I was doing a lot of what I did at the beginning of my labor, which was use my yoga ball, meditate, use music, and I also took about 3 showers, anything to really sort of get my mind off of the contractions that I was feeling. So my contractions during this time of my labor were pretty distinct in that it was contraction and then it was a resting period, and then it was more contraction and then more resting periods. So I was able to sort of function normally, but like I said, I was still in a lot of pain and I was still sort of not too confident in what I was doing. So from about 1 p.m. when we got home on Sunday to midnight now on Monday, I labored at home, and we decided to go back to the birthing center so that I can get checked and see just how far along I had gotten. So my midwife was able to check me, and I was now 4 centimeters dilated, to my disappointment once again. But we decided to stay at the birthing center and do the rest of my labor there. So at this point I was at the active phase of labor, and so this was definitely the most intense part of my labor. During this time, I didn't cry actual tears out of my eyes, but I felt like I was crying inside the entire time of this labor portion. So these contractions were different from the first contractions that I'd been feeling, in that it was constant pain and then just a little bit less pain. So there was no actual resting period where there was no pain. It was constant pain the entire time. So during this phase of my labor, I really just focused on trying to be as comfortable as I could. And I was really uncomfortable at this point. And I was willing to do anything to ease my labor, so I was changing positions. A lot of the time I was just in sort of on all fours, leaning on the bed, just really anything that could relieve the pain that I was feeling at that point. And so my active labor lasted from about midnight to 6 a.m. So at 6 a.m. the midwife came and checked me once again, and at that point I'd measured 7 centimeters, so it was transition labor time. And so that's whenever she decided to go ahead and start the tub so that I can labor in the water. So when I got in the tub, instantly I felt relief from my contractions, and I just felt really relaxed. It was really soothing, and I was just really glad to get a sort of obviously change of position, but just a little bit of a change in scenery. So while I was in the tub, the midwife and the doulas, now at this time I had my doulas, they would come and check the heart rate of the baby every 15 minutes and sort of ask how I was doing, and they were making sure that I was hydrated the whole time. So while I was in the tub, I was constantly drinking fluids and just sort of trying to relax. So for the first 30 minutes to an hour while I was in the tub, the pain I was feeling was relatively minimal to what I had been feeling. But after that point, my contractions were getting the worst that they had ever been. So this was the transition portion of my labor, and the contractions were really intense, but they were short, and I was actually getting a resting period, unlike the active phase of labor. I did feel like I was sleeping, and then I would be woken up again by the next contraction. So I remember feeling just a lot of pressure pushing downward on my pelvis, and I remember the doulas coming in and they asked me if I felt the urge to push, and I was like, I think I feel the urge to push. I'm not sure what that would feel like, but they were sort of just looking at me like, well, when you feel the urge to push, you'll know you feel the urge to push. And it wasn't too long after they had asked me that I started feeling the urge to push. So these urges to push were like contractions. So my contractions were now replaced by the urge to push, and the urge to push was not exactly painful like the contractions were. It was just sort of feeling weird, because once again it just felt like pressure. And so the first time I really felt the urge to push, I did a sort of less than par job, and so I was thinking, okay, well, now I know what it feels like, and so the next time I might be able to better direct my effort. And so the next time that I felt the urge to push, it came within minutes, but I started pushing, and I felt like I made progress, and I could really feel my son's head being really far down my vaginal cavity at this point. And I told my partner, I'm pretty sure the baby's coming, the doulas need to come, the midwives need to come, he's about to come out. And so he was sort of like, do I leave? Do I stay? And so at this point he was really sort of torn between going to get the doulas and the midwife and staying with me, and he really didn't want to leave, but he was able to call them, and so they came in. The doulist came in first, and they were able to see that my son was in fact about to crown, and so they were like, wait, 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 and they called the midwife. And in between that the whole time between the midwife coming and the doulist, you know, calling her to come, I was just sort of holding in my son, and I was fine with this because I remember reading that it's ideal to sort of to not push out the baby too quickly because that can increase your chances of tearing. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just sort of hold him in. It wasn't too difficult, so that's what I did, and it didn't take that long. And so the midwife came in, and I literally just breathed my son out. And so once my midwife saw how quickly my son's head came out, she was just sort of like, push the other part out. She just said it like it was the easiest thing to do, and it actually was. Pushing that last portion was not even painful at all. Even crowning him was not painful. It was just sort of literally just pushing the effort to push him out. And so my son was born, and my midwife caught him in the water, and I brought him to my chest, and that was now the third time that I cried whenever he was born, but these were tears of joy. And one of the first things that I said whenever I had delivered him and I was in the tub was I would do it all over again. I just couldn't believe that I was now holding the little person that I'd been carrying for 9 months in my belly and meeting him for the first time. And we did do delayed cord clamping, so when my son's umbilical cord stopped pulsing is whenever it was clamped and it was cut, and my partner actually got to do the honors of cutting his cord. And from that point, my partner took my son Elijah, and I was helped out the water and onto the bed, and I was just sort of situated there. The delivery of the placenta was relatively easy, not painful at all. I barely felt it, it just felt sort of warm. And I had very minimal bleeding, and Elijah never left our sight, so he was with us in the birthing room the entire time. And my partner got to do the honors of measuring his head, taking his weight, and sort of everything was hands-on. And that was something that we really liked, was how intimate it was. And we had Elijah at 9 a.m. and we were out by 3 p.m. And so I'm hoping my story will empower, inspire, or even enlighten all the mamas and soon-to-be mamas or aspiring mamas. A natural, intimate, beautiful birth is definitely attainable. And so in my next videos, I will be sharing with you all my tips for having a successful natural birth, as well as just mommy things in general. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next video.